Good morning, good morning, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. You're watching the TMI show. That's the Ted Manila Information Show, or Too Much Information Show. We're here Monday through Friday, every single day of the week at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Please like, follow, and share the show. And thank you so much for joining us. Guest host today is Robby West, producer. You all remember him. Today's main topic is one that will come of some interest to Robby, I have a feeling.
Yep.
And we will get into that. So today we're going to be talking about the mass shooting in Jerusalem, or I should say more accurately, Israeli-occupied Palestine is where that happened. Also, Trump's sort of scary rhetoric directed at the city of Chicago. Are Democrats overreacting, or is Trump going too far? We're going to be talking about that big raid against the Hyundai plant down there in Georgia, where hundreds, about 300 South Koreans were 475, my apologies, were all rounded up. We'll get into the details of that and what it all means, and how it sort of impacts Trump's policies and his politics. This is a sort of a personal story for me, but the personal impact of falls. And basically, as it turns out, how over-medicating older people might be causing them to fall, as we know that falling is literally the worst thing that can happen when you're older. It's the number one cause of death for elderly Americans. Turns out that deprescribing might save your grandparents' lives. So, or if you're old, your life. So that's something to get into, news you can use. And finally, we'll be talking about this strange story out of the New York Times about this statue of General Stonewall Jackson that was removed from Charlottesville back at the peak of the BLM stuff back in 2022. It's been given to an African-American artist who basically did things to it, and as part of a new exhibit that's opening in LA. And I know, Robby, you have thoughts about that. So let's just...
Your audio is really cracky, like you're crackling up.
It's crackly, huh? Let me see if I can. I did something different, so let me undo that different thing. How's this?
That's much better.
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
You don't sound like you're eating popcorn anymore. So we
are.
Oh, good. No, this is a professional show with the redneck and the communist cartoonist.
That's correct. Yeah, we do try to provide you with high quality, at least in terms of the audio feed. So again, thanks everyone for joining us. Let's get straight into it. Okay, so a shooting on Monday morning local time in the northern outskirts of Jerusalem left at least 6 people dead, several more seriously injured, according to the ambulance service there in Israel and hospital officials. The cops are calling it a terrorist attack. They say that the perpetrators have been killed at the scene. No group has yet claimed responsibility. This began around 10:15 in the morning local time in Israel when 2 guys opened fire at people waiting for the bus at a busy intersection. The police added in a statement that a soldier and several civilians at the bus stop engaged the attackers and returned fire, killing them on the spot. The junction where the attack took place is in Ramot, a large area that Israel seized during the 1967 Arab-Israeli War and then later annexed illegally. The Palestinians and much of the rest of the world consider Ramot to be a settlement in occupied territory. That's the official stance of the United Nations as well. Prime Minister Netanyahu visited the scene, said that his country was on a war against terrorism on several fronts. We're now in pursuit, encircling the villages the murderers came from, he said. Earlier, the Israeli military said it had dispatched soldiers to look for additional suspects and that troops had been sent off to seal several areas on the outskirts of the Palestinian city of Ramallah. That's in the occupied West Bank. Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar said that the gunmen were kept Palestinians. That comes, of course, at a fraught moment as Israel expands its 2-year war against Hamas into Gaza City, the main city in Gaza. In the West Bank, land grabs by Jewish colonists and attacks on Palestinians and their property have intensified, hitting a record high. Paramedic Fadi Dekadik said in an ambulance service statement that he arrived in Ramot to find a very difficult and tragic scene. The wounded were lying on the road and sidewalk near a bus stop, he added. 4 male victims were pronounced dead at the scene, and about a dozen more casualties were transferred to hospitals, 7 of them suffering serious injuries from gunshot wounds, according to the ambulance service. 2 other victims were declared dead when they arrived at the hospital. Hamas, which of course led the October 7th, 2023 attack, praised the shooting, but didn't take any responsibility. In a statement, they said the shooting was a heroic and unique operation and a natural response to what it described as Israel's ongoing aggression against our Palestinian people in Gaza, the West Bank, and Jerusalem. Robby, I don't think there's a lot to say about this. I mean, it's kind of obvious that this is sort of an ongoing thing. Unless you disagree, I'm totally open to it. But I think, to me, the thing that's surprising is that given the incredible security measures that the Israelis have imposed, for years now, and particularly following 2023, that these things can still happen is kind of, just shows that there's just no way to insulate yourself, no matter how repressive you are. In the end, if you live in the same neighborhood as these people, the Palestinians, you're going to have to learn to get along.
Well, that or you can just kill them all. And it seems like that's kind of what that's what the Israelis seem to be just really kind of interested in. So I think this just goes to prove 2 things. One, the attacker always has the initiative, and they just have to get lucky once, to be able to do some damage. Whereas if you're on defense, you've got to have 100% rate, which just simply doesn't happen. It's impossible. Now, what the question is going to be is the West Bank now going to get the treatment that Gaza is getting? Because let's be honest, even the protests going on in Israel, it's not against the genocide that's happening.
No,
it's about how long it's taking Netanyahu to commit the genocide at the least, or get the hostages back at the most. So ultimately, I think that what this is going to boil down to is that the Israeli people are going to come to accept that they cannot live side by side with the Palestinians. And if you decide you can't live side by side with somebody, what do you do with them? You give them the Andrew Jackson treatment.
Maybe. I mean, certainly, I think it's very clear that the Israeli government plans to wrap things up with Gaza. And once they do that, look, they would naturally turn their attention to the West Bank. I mean, there's no way they wouldn't. I mean, these are people who want to create a greater Israel. For people who are incredibly, the thing that they find so offensive about the phrase "from the river to the sea" is they want the "from the river to the sea" for themselves, right? And so, they want it all.
Yeah, but which river? Are we talking about the Jordan, or are we talking about the Euphrates? Because
from
depending on
the Jordan,
because I mean, if you look at a map of what they consider, the promised land, it's from the Euphrates River to the Nile. So let's be honest here. I mean, that's what a lot of these people would like to get. The problem is that there's a bunch of Arabs in the way who are well armed. They're just not well trained. And the questions are going to be: how far are they willing to go to make this thing happen?
Well, the Israelis aren't really the most measured people, so I would say that they're willing to go pretty far.
I agree.
I mean, look, I feel really sorry, obviously, for the victims, but I also feel really sorry for the people who are going to be, in Ramallah, who are going to be surrounded and subject to all sorts of abuse. No doubt, the alleged family members of the alleged shooters, their houses will be destroyed, their families will be rounded up and taken as hostages and tortured in Israeli prisons. That's what the Israelis always do, and so. Yeah, well, it's just one more thing to watch. All right, so let's move on. President Trump attempted to downplay his social media post that appeared to threaten war against Chicago, saying that he just wants to clean up Chicago. Speaking to reporters before he left the White House for the U.S. Open here in New York, where, by the way, he was booed extensively, not that surprising, Trump addressed his post from Saturday, in which he invoked his new name for the Pentagon, the War Department, with an image that showed helicopters, billowing flames, and the Chicago skyline. Chicago, about to find out why it's called the Department of War, read the post titled "Chipocalypse Now." Every time I've read this now 4 times in preparation for the show, and Robby, I read Chipocalypse. I'm like, what what do poor potato chips have to do with any of this? Shouldn't it be Chick-copolypse or something? But then it would be Chicks or Chick-fil-A. I don't know. A reference to the 1979 movie Apocalypse Now. On Sunday, when asked if he was threatening to go to war with Chicago, Trump called it fake news and chastised the reporter when she asked why he would use the DOD. We're not going to war. We're going to clean up our cities, Trump said. We're going to clean them up so they don't kill 5 people every weekend. That's not war. That's common sense. Trump's post was an alarming escalation in his quest to keep deploying the military on U.S. soil in the name of cracking down on crime and illegal immigration. For weeks, Trump has attacked Chicago and other cities led by Democrats that he assails as hellholes because of crime, and floated sending federal agents and National Guardsmen to cities around the country. Trump deployed the military to D.C. in August and L.A. in June. His post on Saturday drew a fierce rebuke from Dems, including J.B. Pritzker of Illinois, who, in his own social post, blasted Trump as a wannabe dictator. The President of the United States is threatening to go to war with an American city, Pritzker wrote. This is not a joke. This is not normal. In an interview on State of the Nation on CNN, Tom Homan, the White House border czar, said that the words in the post were taken out of context when asked whether the president planned to go to war in Chicago. He said the post was really supposed to convey that the administration is going to war with the criminal cartels. We're going to war with illegal aliens, public safety threats, and cited previous operations in the city that caught violent criminals in the country illegally. As you know, Robby, I'm not really a person who tends to overreact to like Democrats try to, make a lot of Trump's rhetoric and, like say, oh, he was trying to reach out to Russia when he made that comment at the rally, like Russia, if you have Hillary's emails, please turn them over, blah, blah, blah. And, I always knew that was a joke. I always knew that was sarcastic. But I got to say, this is really intemperate rhetoric. I mean, it's like a social media post is a press release. It is an official statement by the President of the United States, who's supposed to represent all the American people, including those who didn't vote for him, including those who live in Chicago, many of whom did vote for him, and saying like, you're about to, showing the Chicago skyline ablaze and, saying Chicago about to find out why it's called the Department of War. It didn't say Chicago illegals about to find out or Chicago criminals about to find out. It's Chicago. And it's kind of like people don't really need to jump to a lot of conclusions. I think this is really stupid and on his part, and this kind of shit needs to stop.
Well, Trump is stupid. I mean, first, let's just be honest about this. He's not exactly the sharpest knife in the drawer. And one thing I just also want to point out, this is not the first time that a sitting president has done this. I mean, Joe Biden threatened to nuke red states, and threatened to go to war against people who identify with me, at least politically in some way, as garbage. So, I mean, this is not anything that's new. And the problem is as we get more and more polarized as a society, eventually you're going to have more and more political violence, and that's just going to make things that much worse. And this is something that both sides need to stop, because it's stupid. Because anyone who thinks that if this country does descend into civil war or civil unrest, if you think it's going to be two armies tearing each other like it was in the war between the states or the American Revolution, you're out of your mind. It's going to be more like the French Revolution on steroids.
Well, one side will get control quickly, and I think I know which side that is. I mean,
which one do you think?
Oh, I think it's the right. I mean, the cliche is true for a reason. I mean, the right has the guns. Not to mention, so the country in terms of population is very evenly divided politically and polarized evenly. But in terms of geographic territory, I mean, you just look at an election map, man, the reds, most of the country territorially is red. I think it's and also I think kind of like, I don't see, I think that like with all the divisions on the right and all the different striations of conservatism, white nationalism, and so on that exist, there's more readiness to form. It's more likely, I think, on the right politically that people would be able to set aside their differences to form, an alliance of convenience against the left than the other way around. The striations on the left are far more profound, right? It's like, it's not like liberal Democrats and progressives and socialists and left libertarians have the same vision of what they want the country to look like at all. They're completely different ideologies, and they view each other as enemies. So they'd never be able to get their act together.
Yeah, that's a big part of it. And I think there's one part here that people don't really think about. There's a lot of people, I'm just going to use the term left, for lack of a better term. They look at people who have the same kind of political ideology that I have, the same kind of religion that I have, look like I do, who sound like I do, and they look at me and they say, I hate you. You're a Nazi. Well, what you do with Nazis? At best you hit them. At best you kill them. So if you tell me that you hate me and that you want to erase me, and we're going to kind of go in that here at the main story here, here on the show, I'll take you at your word, and I will gladly join with somebody who I do not agree with on anything to fight the person that says they want to put me in the dirt. And
I agree with you.
In a lot of ways, the left has got a major problem with this, because if these people would just shut their mouths and actually listen for like 30 minutes, a lot of them would realize we got more in common with each other than what they realize, but they're too stupid to understand it. And if they want to make an enemy of me, hey, you're welcome to it. It's not going to end so well for you.
Adrian saying over on the Rumble feed, I'm increasingly drawn to Pol Pot and Year Zero. God, I hope not. Highly recommend Philip Short's biography of Pol Pot. He's better known for his Mao Zedong biography, but Pol Pot thing is even more fascinating because the odds are you probably don't know as much about it. I didn't.
I don't.
And
educate me.
Well, so Pol Pot, you know who he was.
Yeah.
He was, and basically, people think he was just a maniac who kind of lost his mind and just started killing people. But the truth is he was a very well-educated, sophisticated guy. And when he took over Cambodia and renamed it Kampuchea, basically he got the idea that it was possible to not just build socialism, but declare the advent of communism and the new communist man in a country that had never even had industrialization, that was completely agrarian. And he, within short order, cleared out the cities because he was opposed to urbanism, immediately declared Year Zero, basically, like the history starts from scratch right here, abolished money, said that money is no longer needed because communism will provide for everything. Needless to say, the entire economy collapsed in short order. Kampuchea was cut off from the rest of the world, and they started looking for enemies, right? Constantly, internal and mostly internal, some external, but basically, they crawled up. It's what happens when an intellectual crawls up his own asshole and is not and sort of forgets that the whole purpose, it's called communism because we live communally, right? We have a community. It's communitarian, and it's not individualistic, and it's not about what I think or what you think or what Pol Pot thinks. It's about what we all think and how we work together. And he just forgot all that and just basically, became an arrogant piece of shit. It wasn't just him alone, obviously, but no, Year Zero. Yeah, so Star Lion's asking on YouTube, is Year Zero really a Pol Pot thing? Does it apply broadly to communism? It's absolutely not a communist thing. By the way, the French did the same thing, right? In the French Revolution, they declared Year One, right? It's, I think it was 1793, maybe, or that was Year One. And if you look at old coins from Napoleon, it's en trois, Year Three or whatever. There's a tendency. The Muslims did it, right? They, the Year One is Muhammad's birth. So people tend. Hell, Christians did it with with Christ. So everybody sort of tries to define history as we're starting from scratch. Everything that came before didn't matter. Blah blah blah. So. But no, it's so African Zero Starland says, was used with reference to a bunch of different communist or satanic, aka Rosemary's Baby at the end. Yeah, so that's interesting too. So actually, I bet we could do a whole episode, like a Rumble Premium, just on efforts to say that history has started again. Don't forget Francis Fukuyama, right? The guy who wrote The End of History basically argued that history ended in 1991 and started from scratch with the collapse of the Soviet Union. Everything had changed. Nothing really changed. Yes, no. Starlion, Pol Pot was the Khmer Rouge. That is correct. All right. Yeah. Kim Jong-sung did it too. There's so many. Actually, I forgot about all these efforts to start history from zero. Anyway, so we should move on. Okay, so there was a huge immigration raid on September 4th. Immigration authorities conducted a raid at the Hyundai-LG Energy Solution EV battery plant under construction in Elabel, Georgia. All right, so this is just to make this clear. This is a plant where they're going to be making electric vehicle batteries for LG as well as Hyundai. However, it's not open yet. These are the construction workers that are at issue here in rural Georgia. 475 construction workers were arrested, mostly South Korean nationals. This is the biggest single Homeland Security enforcement operation ever. The detained workers were primarily subcontractors and LG Energy Solution employees. They've been accused of living or working illegally in the U.S., either by crossing the border unlawfully or by violating their visas. I looked into this. Mostly it's about violating their visas. South Korea was very pissed off because they're a close ally. They sent their diplomats and they arranged for the release of about 300 of their nationals who will all be flown home. And I think that's already happened on a chartered plane. Basically, this is a strange event. The raid underscores a conflict between, of course, the administration's push for foreign investment, which they want a lot, as well as the immigration crackdown. This impacts a $7.6 billion project that's supposed to be Georgia's #1 biggest economic development, and of course has gotten a lot of money to come in from South Korea. The governor of Georgia, Brian Kemp, said that he's all for the raid, saying that the law must be followed. And he said that, and meanwhile, Hyundai and LG paused all the construction while they look into this whole thing. It's a very, very peculiar thing, right? I mean, normally you don't really think of like South Korea, much less people who are working in a high-tech company facility like this, as being undocumented workers. You think of them as like kitchen workers in a Mexican restaurant or something like that. So that's the profile here is not what we're used to. I mean, I know big companies like Tyson Chicken famously hired lots of illegals out there in Arkansas, but that's to do like horrible work, like cleaning out the assholes of chickens and stuff. This is just, I guess the thing is, this shines a spotlight on a form of illegal immigration that I was previously really unaware of.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just weird, right? Because this place is just outside of Savannah, Georgia, but maybe 30 miles outside of it. And so obviously everybody knows that you cannot find qualified construction workers anywhere in the state of Georgia to go and work on this facility. They just simply don't exist, Ted. There's no one down there who knows how to do math, who knows how to turn a wrench or use a hammer. So what you have to do is that you have to import your people to have eyes look like apostrophes to come and work on this stuff, because it just has to, that's just how it has to be. And I don't understand it. I mean, this is a self-inflicted wound by the South Koreans. Is there a time and a place for foreign investment? Yeah, there is. Me personally, I'd rather see more American investment. I'd rather see more American companies. But if the idea is to bring in foreign companies, then the very least that they should do is hire Americans. And if they can't do that, well, then ICE, I wish you the best of luck. Happy hunting.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, I can't. The thing that's also interesting is the fact that the South Korean government kind of complained about it. It's like, well, I mean, why are you complaining? I mean, I don't think that like if American workers were working illegally in South Korea that they would act any different.
Well, why would they? I mean, it's kind of like what we said, when you interviewed me. I mean, there's a lot of countries in this world that are real serious countries. They have immigration laws. They prioritize their population, which is the right and proper thing to have done. So I guarantee you that if I was working illegally in South Korea, one thing, I'd stick out like a sore thumb. Second, they would ask me, papers, please. Papers, please. And if I can't produce papers, I will be sent home.
Undeniably.
Let's just be honest.
No question. I mean, I've had some serious visa issues in foreign countries, and it can be terrifying. There's certain countries in Central Asia that still have exit visas, which means if you don't have a visa to leave, you cannot. And that can be a problem because it involves a fee, and you're traveling in a place that doesn't have ATMs, and you might not be able to get money. So you could, and there are Americans who end up in like a Turkmen or an Uzbek prison because of that.
Well, I'm sure. And so, I mean, my whole thing is, I understand, that there's, I know what the South Korean argument is going to be is, we're here, we're building this factory. We're going to do you a solid, you poor, uneducated, stupid Americans. Okay, fine. Fair enough. Let's just assume we really are stupid and uneducated.
Yeah, Mr. A. Lee on Rumble is saying, I read it was an overstay on their visa. I read the same thing.
It was.
But I mean, it's like really strange, right? Like, and someone, Mr. Ali also said the Koreans were setting up the factory for American workers. But, I mean, what Robby said is correct. I mean, it's not like we don't have construction workers in the United States. We didn't really need them. I don't know. I mean, as long as these people weren't mistreated, by ICE, I don't have any problem with this raid.
No, I don't either. And
it's very peculiar.
No, I agree. No, and I haven't seen any reports where they were sent to South Sudan or where they were dropped in alligator Alcatraz or anything. They were put on a plane and they were sent home. Because one thing that South Korea does, unlike a lot of other countries, they actually accept their citizens back into their countries from which they respond by where they're citizens of. So it kind of helps if countries that if they export their population when they get sent home, they should take their people back. Kudos to South Korea for doing that. Next time, maybe hire Americans though. Just saying, that would solve this problem.
Maybe. By the way, I don't know if you heard Kilmar Albrego Garcia, who's been, of course, the subject of, I would say, illegal attempts to deport him for months by the Trump administration. They wanted to deport him to El Salvador. That didn't take. They brought him back. Then they wanted to send him to Uganda. That didn't take because the judge said no. Now the Trump administration is saying they want to send him to Eswatini, a country that even I had to look up to see where it was. Eswatini is formerly a kingdom, and anyway, it used to be Swaziland. So it's landlocked.
Southern Africa.
Yeah, it's Southern Africa. It's just it borders South Africa and Mozambique, and it's if you swam eventually east, you'd eventually run into Madagascar. Yeah.
So Lee on the Rumble feed said Americans cannot build the factory that the Koreans were building. My question to you, Lee, is how do you know that?
Well, why not? How not? How so?
I mean, is there something that has to do with is there some kind of genetic code that's required for
or some Korean technology or whatever? But I mean, if that's the case, right? Like, let's just say that's the sake that there's magic Korean, stuff that's needed. Well, I mean, look, this is a giant multi-billion-dollar facility. Surely LG and Hyundai, both of them huge transnational corporations, can meet with their American counterparts and explain, listen, we need you to extend the visas for these Korean workers. I don't know. Yeah.
I mean, there's a right way to do this. And we're going to move on to the next story. But here's the last thing I'm going to say about it. If the Koreans, by virtue of some kind of hyper intelligence or hyper technology or just whatever else, if they're that good, only Koreans can build a Korean factory, then I submit to you that the Koreans can be responsible for their own defense. We will close all of our bases, leave South Korea, and they can go with God as it is. Because if the Americans are that incompetent where we can't build their factories, then we're surely too incompetent to defend them. They can fuck off.
I would personally love to. I would love that, but for other reasons, because I don't see. First of all, the U.S. forces in the Koreas are a destabilizing force, and we don't need to be there. It's like North and South Korea should be able to negotiate toward reunification if they want to. The U.S. shouldn't have anything to do with it there. And anyway, why do we have U.S. troops anywhere in the world when we have people who are starving to death right here in America? Anyway, let's move on. So as you know, if you know anything about elderly people, the number one thing they tell old people is just don't fall. So there's an article in today's New York Times, but it highlights a guy, a 69-year-old dude named Earl Vickers. He experienced a lot of falls while walking his dog. It turned out that they were linked to a prostate cancer drug. I'm going to mispronounce this, called enzalutamide, I think, which he stopped taking in 2022. Then they noticed that he stopped falling. And it turns out that there's a high side effect of this drug and a number of other drugs that elderly people take of increased fall risk. Now, I can't help but thinking of my mom, who died in 2020. Her whole final decline started with a major fall in her house where she broke her hip, and it detached entirely from her upper leg. She had a shoebox full of medications, the medications that, like a lot of elderly people, and she had medications. Most of those medications were meant to counter the side effects of other medications that she'd been given. And some of them were things like Lipitor, who are things that are like really not necessary in most cases. They're kind of bullshit meds. And basically they love to over medicate old people in this country in particular. Mm-hmm. And they just basically, oh, well, take this drug. Oh, well, the drug you gave me, it's causing me to have problems. Instead of saying, stop taking that drug, they say, oh, take this other drug, which will help with the side effects of that. Oh, the new thing's causing side effects, and so on and so on. So anyway, in 2023, 41,000 Americans over the age of 65 died from falls. And by the way, those rates are a lot higher because often the fall is just the beginning of the end. That's how it turned out for my mom. About a year later, she was dead. But the death rates from falls over 65 have tripled per capita over the last 30 years, particularly among those over 85. The current rate is 339 per 100,000 people. That's more than 3 times what it used to be. That, according to Dr. Thomas Farley. He attributes this to what he calls FRID, or fall risk increasing drugs. So what is an FRID or a FRID? It includes, I'm going to mispronounce all of these, benzodiazepines, opioids, antidepressants, and gabapentin are all implicated in falls due to side effects like drowsiness and dizziness. Although some experts argue that declining prescriptions for certain drugs like opioids and benzodiazepines complicate the narrative. So then there's some people who oppose this view. Geriatricians like Thomas Gill and Neil Alexander say actually this is due to other things like improved reporting of fall-related deaths, elderly populations that are more frail than they used to be, and age-related impairments might contribute to the rising mortality rate beyond just medication use. Experts are still nevertheless overall coming together to advocate for what they call de-describing these FRIDs. There's initiatives like the Beers criteria, which recommend alternatives like cognitive behavioral therapy, that's CBT, which is basically just talk therapy, and exercise, using patients to discuss fall risks with doctors to explore safer treatment options. This is a big deal, Robby. I mean, It's like, look, I'm 62 years old. I keep thinking, what happens to me, like when my doctor started saying, well, Ted, you have blah, 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 and you need to do this and that. And I don't want to end up with that shoebox full of medications like my mom had. Sure. I was always arguing with her and her doctors to stop taking them. I'm convinced, though, that she is among the victims here. That basically she was, I will say she had fallen before when she was younger, but it became ridiculous. She also suffered from dementia. So it's hard to say like whether the dementia contributed to the falls or if it was a vicious circle, probably more like that. But the meds certainly didn't help.
No, they didn't. And the thing is, I know people are able to see that I'm looking away from the camera, during the show. It's because I'm working. I'm doing my day job at the same time. And I just a little quirk. I'm actually working on a bunch of home options reports right now. And it's exactly what you're talking about. Like I'm seeing medication lists for these people, Ted, that are over a page long. And a lot of them are just like what you just now said, some of the medication is used to counteract the medication being used already. So the question that I have, and that you brought up, is why are we prescribing these medications that don't work or that you don't need or that actually make the situation worse? And I can tell you what the answer is because of my job. It's all about money. It's all about money. All this is, I wish I could send you, without violating HIPAA and going to prison, the insurance paperwork that I'm getting. This one patient that I'm working on right now has over 7 different insurance authorizations going out to different insurance companies for medication to treat medication, just to cover the prescriptions. And it's crazy. It's absolutely insane.
I want to be really clear here. I'm totally open to this, to this statement, and I believe you. But basically, just to be clear, you're saying they're just selling meds to people who don't need them.
Yeah, it's legalized drug dealing. That's all this is. Because a lot of the medications I'm looking at right now that I'm actually looking at here on the screen, it's to treat side effects for another drug. And so what my question is why not find another drug that works the same way, or at least close to that way without the side effects? Why do you have to prescribe a medication to treat a side effect for a medication that the patient probably doesn't even need to use?
Good question.
And the answer is money.
Well, seriously, this is where people who are elderly and their caretakers and their family members, they need to really stop viewing doctors as gods. They need to think for themselves. We live in a golden age of medical research where you can go on a search engine or an AI search engine, and when a doctor says, "Oh, you could take this drug," you can find out what all the side effects are. What are the counterindications? You can't just reflexively do what your doctor tells you to do. You've got to think for yourself.
And one of the things that people don't understand is that a lot of these drug companies, what they do is that they send people that they're salespeople. They're called drug reps, and they go into the different clinics and they push financial incentives for doctors to prescribe their medications. And this is something that absolutely happens. I see it with my day job. This is a part of my world, right now. My wife, she's a medical coder, and these drug reps will go to the clinic that she works at. They'll buy lunch for the entire facility, have sit downs with the doctors, talk to them about the benefits of these medications. And really what they're doing is that they're selling it.
Yeah.
And it's wrong, but that's what happens. That is literally what happens.
I hate pills. I'm just against them in general. It's like all I can do to take an aspirin sometimes, but maybe I go too far the other way. Yeah. All right, Robby, are you ready? Are you ready to rumble?
Almost. Let me just say this real quick.
Okay.
About the drug companies. Have you ever wondered why the big drug companies sell, and I use that word deliberately, sell ads on CNN, Fox News, and Boomer Legacy TV networks?
Because everybody who watches those ads is old.
It's because they're old, and also what it does is that it's a form of regulatory capture. These drug companies, they fund a lot of the advertising revenues that these companies get. And so what that does, that ensures those companies never do any kind of investigation on on the topic we're talking about right now. That is why.
Right. If you're Viacom and you own a cable TV station that has one of their major clients that's bringing in hundreds of millions of dollars a year is a big pharma company, you're going to be loath to greenlight an investigative report about something, an issue like this. I mean, here on the TMI show, we don't have, no one cares about us, so we can tell the truth. But yeah, I mean, look, I'm not going to lie. If I went to work for some company that was paying me $10 million a year, like Rachel Maddow, and they said, Ted, we would really rather you not talk about this, this FRID issue. Can you talk about something else? I could talk myself into thinking, well, there's many other injustices in the world, and I can focus on those instead. That's what they do.
Sure, exactly. But yes, I'm ready to rumble.
Let's rumble. So on January 6, 2022, Hamza Walker, director of the BRIC, this is the museum, used to be called LAX Art, urgently moved a century-old statue of Confederate General Stonewall Jackson out of Charlottesville, Virginia, where it had been pushed over during the Black Lives Matter protests and removed, to a warehouse in New Jersey. That was following the city's decision to finally remove it and the violent 2017 Unite the Right rally and all that. So the statue was then handed over to an artist in LA named Kara Walker. She deconstructed the statue of Stonewall Jackson and reassembled it into a new sculpture that she called Unmanned Drone, which is a grotesque reconfiguration of horse and rider that challenges the myth of Confederate glory and reflecting her own ongoing exploration of America's racial history. Obviously, it's not telling tales out of school to say that she's Black. A new monuments exhibition opens next month at the BRIC and the Museum of Contemporary Art's Geffen Contemporary in LA. The exhibition pairs decommissioned Confederate statues with works by 18 contemporary artists, including Walker, to find new ways of engaging with these historical objects rather than erasing or preserving them. So basically, they mash them up. The exhibit is, of course, basically dealing with in the aftermath of the removal of 173 Confederate monuments that have been removed in recent years. Hundreds are still up in their various places. And there's plans to reinstall some of these statues. So there's a lot of debates about what to do about all this. Should be pointed out that most of these statues were not really erected during the Confederate period. They were afterwards, like in the late 1890s and the late 1800s, mostly the early 1900s. Hamza Walker and Bennett Simpson, who are the curators of this exhibit, they want to create a productive estrangement. I love art jargon. By juxtaposing toppled statues with contemporary art, they say they're expecting backlash from maybe someone like Robby, but they defend the museum's role in fostering political and cultural reflection. Robby, first of all, tell us who Stonewall Jackson was.
Well, Stonewall Jackson was first, he was actually a veteran of the Mexican-American War. He served as a professor at VMI, the Virginia Military Institute. And in his early years, he was actually an orphan who grew up dirt floor poor in what's now West Virginia and was raised by his uncle. And long story short, he went to West Point, graduated, and he was in a lot of ways, I mean, you could really consider him as a military genius. He was also a very devout Christian. He was so devout, and this is what makes this thing so pathetic. And this woman, she's probably suffering brain damage because her mama used her face as a shovel. He actually violated Virginia law because he taught Black children how to read so they could read the Bible. He actually got into it with the vice president of the Confederacy, who pointed out that Jackson was violating the law. Which Jackson replied, "Yes, I am, and I would rather go to prison than violate God's law, because the Christians believe that God's law is the highest, and then you have the jurisdictions of power." And so it's just really ironic that this woman, this social justice warrior, I'm gonna go as far as call her a satanic vandal, picks a statue of a man who politically she would have agreed with to desecrate in this way and make a monstrosity out of. So not only is she physically stupid, she's also incredibly stupid. She's physically ugly and mentally stupid, is I guess what I'm trying to say.
Okay, well, so let's get into this, right? I mean, so there's two aspects to it, right? There's multiple aspects to this. There's the removal of the statue in the first place. There's the transfer of it out of its geographical context. There's and then there's its destruction, and then not just its destruction. It's not like they just melted it down. Lots of statues in history have just been melted down and repurposed for whatever. And then in this case, it was put back together to be deliberately ugly in order to obviously as political and artistic commentary about, I would imagine, racism, the South, the Confederacy, all of the above. Which part do you object? Which parts do you object to? Is there any part that you don't object to?
Well, I mean, first, if you want to take the statue down, fine, whatever. Like you said, it happened all throughout history. I mean, during the after the Fourth Crusade, the Crusaders looted Constantinople, and they melted irreplaceable works of art that dated back to the days of ancient Greece, including a statue of Hera that was reportedly incredibly beautiful, and they melted these things down and made coins out of it. So if you decide that you want to do that, okay, that's fine. Then at least do something that's going to be constructive. Make money out of it, turn it into copper wire, whatever it is that you want to do. I mean, at the end of the day, what this woman did, and this kind of goes back to the conversation we had just a little bit ago about the left and the right. When someone does something like this, well, on one hand, they say, Robby, you have to embrace our differences. We have to have diversity. We have to have diversity of thought. You have to understand my shared experience, while at the same time, you are destroying my history and literally telling me that you hate me. You don't have the right at that point to ask me or to expect me not to look back at you and tell you to go to hell.
No, I don't have Ms. Walker here, but I imagine she would probably say, Robby, this isn't about hating you. It's not even about hating Stonewall Jackson. It's about, making a statement about history and the toxic, the legacy of slavery and oppression of Black people.
Great. Okay, then let's have the conversation. Let's talk about the Islamic slave trade. Which one lasted longer, Ted, and which one was more brutal? The Islamic slave trade or the European slave trade?
I know the answer. No, I know you do. I know the answer to that. Yeah.
So answer the question. Which one is more brutal and which one is more oppressive?
The Islamic one.
Okay, then let's have that conversation then. Why is it always?
That's just simply. I mean, look. Let's not stand up for slavery over here, right? I mean, it's weird. No, I think if you went back to 1750, very few people could even imagine a world without slavery anywhere in the world, right? Slavery had always been around, and it's now you can hardly even imagine a world with slavery. But I mean, I think that said, one thing that I think most Americans can agree on is that slavery was bad, right?
Well, Ted, I mean, we got slavery right now. What is H-1B visas if not indentured servitude?
Well, that's true.
Libya is a failed state supported that was created by the United States and NATO, where I can go and buy myself a somewhat slightly used African for $100.
That's true.
So
they have open air slave markets in Libya right now. No, slavery is not gone, and it's not the only place in the world either
and
where
I'm not
it has it.
And I'm not defending it either.
But I mean, so I mean, look, I have a dim view generally of like most modern art. Every time I go to the Whitney Museum here in New York, or the Modern, or a gallery show, I'm always like, this shit's dumb for the most part, right? What would you have thought? I mean, I think everything with art, everything comes down to execution, and so I mean, let's just say that like she had like borrowed the statue and she put it in some kind of, she didn't damage it, but she put it into some kind of artistic context that comment upon it, maybe negatively, and then sent it back to to where it came from, and to back east. How would you feel? How would you have felt about that?
I would prefer that over what she did. I mean, she carved this thing up, and she turned it into like this grotesque monstrosity of a hybrid, half horse, half human hybrid. I mean, the thing looks satanic, honestly. I mean, you'll have to do some looking to find some pictures of it. There are some that are available, and it's really pathetic. It's just the point is, if you want to do this, fine. But if your issue is on white supremacy or the evils of slavery, maybe you shouldn't pick a dude that agreed with you politically, broke the law to educate black people, and actually opposed slavery. If you're going to do this, Nathan Bedford Forrest would have been a better target for this vitriol. Now, personally, I'm against destroying monuments at all. Just like for the same reason I'm against burning books.
What about like if there was a monument to, I mean, that's a broad stroke, right? Let's say there was a monument to, I'm trying to think of someone really, to Hitler, and you're in Germany. You'd leave that up?
100%. And then have a conversation. See, here's the crazy thing, Ted. If you have the better argument, then you win. That's why it's called the marketplace of ideas. Ripping someone's tongue out, censoring them, and destroying history, by becoming the fascist that you say that you want to fight, doesn't mean that you've won the argument. It means that you're so intellectually weak and stupid that you can't defend your argument. Like, for example, I don't know if you ever read any of General Jackson's letters that were published, in some of the books that have come out. One thing, Ted, that you would have, where he would have really kind of won you over, was that during the war, one thing he talked about is that if the South is defeated, the South loses, the people who win are the bankers and the industrialists and the war profiteers, because they're going to get richer, and the banks.
Well, that is what happened.
Wins.
That is what happened. Totally.
And General Jackson, he is the one that articulated, if the South falls, that's who's really going to win.
However, that said, I could really easily see, I don't have to be black to imagine being black and taking grave offense to walking down the street and seeing and being forced to, be subjected to, let me put it that way, people who are these statues of these Confederate figures, and it's like, wow, these fucking people, they lost the Civil War. Here are their images, and it's like they're pretending like they didn't even lose. And these are a bunch of racists who owned my people, which is why I'm here. And they're still celebrating them. Fuck them. Fuck their statues. Take that shit down. Melt it. Poo on it. I don't give a shit.
Then move. I mean, seriously.
Well, it's black people's country too. I mean, hell, I agree. They didn't even want to be here, right? I mean, they came here involuntarily, kicking and screaming.
Well, I agree, but again, though, I mean, American history, as you know, is very, very, very complicated. The people have the most right to be pissed off. All the way around. Are especially for the Cherokees. Remind me, Ted, which side did the Cherokee Nation fight on? Who do they fight for?
The South.
They fought for the Confederacy. Why is that?
Well, because they'd already been victimized by the Union.
Correct. And so there you go. And a lot of people don't realize this. There are tens of thousands of blacks who served in the Confederate Army.
I don't know, leaving all I have a general tendency to favor leaving statues up, like you, because I think you can learn. They're interesting, and you can learn from them. And just because a statue is up does not mean that it still has the same political potency today. There's an ancient Egyptian obelisk in Central Park that I see when I bike there. Doesn't mean that we're like worshiping, Pharaoh or ISIS, right?
Sure.
So. I get that, but you could also see this going too far. Imagine if, for example, under Nazism, as it turns out, they didn't really do shit tons of these, but imagine if during Nazism, every town had 10 Hitler statues. I mean, does Germany really have to be awash in Hitler statues? I mean, maybe you can take most of them down and leave one or two up just as a rep. I mean, that's kind of like what they did in the former Soviet Union. They took most of those Lenin statues down, but a lot of them are still around just because.
Well, then you know what you do in that situation, Ted. I keep hearing that the United States is a democracy, right? Do we hear that a lot? Do we hear that we're a democracy?
Supposedly.
I mean, really, we're a republic, but
Supposedly.
Then how about this? How about if you have a referendum and you let the people vote instead of just ruling by decree?
I have no problem with that. People, the problem here is I think statues are not an important enough issue to like put up to a decree, but I also sort of see your point. The
entire point is, and here's what.
The reason I find the topic interesting is because I can argue both sides.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Oh, well, I was just going to say is that what a lot of people don't realize, and you pointed out, a lot of these statues are set up in the 1890s or early 1900s. And people never ask why. It's because the South was so economically devastated after the war that there was simply no money to put them up. That's one part of it. Another issue is, a lot of people don't realize, is that in a lot of ways, these monuments are gravestones because you have so many people who are just buried in mass graves, hundreds of miles away from home, that and so these monuments were set up as war monuments, as war memorials. And one thing I'd like to also just kind of point out is that after the war, an awful lot of former Confederates were brought into the U.S. government as ambassadors to serve in the military. The animosity that we have nowadays just simply was not there after the war between the states ended. There was a real effort of reconciliation. Now, instead of having reconciliation, instead of celebrating diversity, let's just use their word. We're saying, screw you, Whitey, you're racist. You enslaved my people. Let's forget the entire idea about who stole my people, who stole my ancestors to the Portuguese anyway. Let's just whitewash all this stuff. And then we're just going to come up and we are going to George Floyd the entire American South into submission. I have a problem with that. History is complicated. More conversation is a good thing.
It's so funny. So Scary Girl said, all history is complicated. And I said, not Swiss history. I'm serious. If you ever go like Wikipedia, Swiss history, it's the most boring history in the world. Like nothing really ever happens there. It's kind of amazing. Robby, thanks for having this conversation with me. Sure. I'm sure we'll revisit this topic. Thanks to everyone for watching us here on the TMI show with Manila Chan, currently visiting the International Space Station. She'll be back next week. You've got Robby and I all week.
Y'all stuck with me all week. I apologize in advance.
It's kind of the TRI show this week. And so it'll be just us boys and holding down the fort until Manila gets back on Monday.
You want me to run an ad for us since I've got one up here?
Go ahead, run the ad. And just one reminder before you do that, Deprogram with me and John Kiriakou, 5 p.m. Eastern time this afternoon. Tune in. Go ahead. We'll read that ad.
I'll do it right now. It's got popped on up here. Maybe. Spinning. What the hell? Hold on. It's being stupid. Let's try this. Sorry, Rumble's having problems right now. There we go.
Okay.
So haven't tried 1775 coffee. Now's your shot. The 1775 starter kit just dropped, only 1,000 units. You're getting the bold dark roast that hits hard, the smooth medium roast, and the vitality mushroom coffee for clear, clean energy. Laser focus, no crash. All single origin, small batch, toxin free and mold free. Plus, you're also getting a gold spoon because freedom isn't scooped with plastic, a frother strong enough to stir up your coffee and your mother-in-law's opinions, and a black 1775 tumbler. $170 worth of coffee and gear, yours for $99. This is for the ones who've been watching 1775 blow up on Rumble. Wonder if it's actually worth it. Spoiler, it is. I can attest to that. I've had it. It's good coffee. Go to 1775coffee.com/studio and grab your starter kit before they're gone. Bold beans, clean fuel, and a morning routine that stands for something just like Rumble does.
Okay. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. Much appreciated. We will see you tomorrow, Tuesday, 10 o'clock Eastern time. Like, follow, and share the show.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Hey,